The subway rattled through the underground tunnels, its fluorescent lights flickering faintly overhead. The night had grown long, and most passengers were slumped in their seats, lost in their own worlds. Among them was Emily Carter, a single mom in her late 20s. She had just finished her third consecutive double shift at a small diner on the corner of Maple Street. Her eyes stung with exhaustion, but she carried herself with quiet determination. In her worn-out tote bag rested her daughter Lily's science project, an old shoebox carefully transformed into a solar system with painted foam balls. Emily had promised she would help Lily finish it tonight, even if it meant sacrificing sleep. But as she dropped into an empty subway seat, her body begged for rest. She exhaled heavily, brushing back a loose strand of hair that had escaped her messy ponytail. She looked around at the other passengers, none familiar, just strangers moving through the city like ghosts. Beside her sat a man in a tailored navy suit, his wristwatch gleaming under the dim light. He looked composed, confident, and worlds apart from her life of struggle. His name was Daniel Brooks, though Emily didn't know it yet. To the world, he was the CEO of a fast-growing tech company, a man of wealth and influence, but tonight, he was simply another commuter heading home after a long day of board meetings. Emily tried to fight the heaviness in her eyelids, but the sway of the train lulled her into surrender. Before she could stop herself, her head tipped gently to the side and came to rest on Daniel's shoulder. At first, Daniel stiffened. Strangers weren't supposed to lean on you in the subway, but when he turned slightly to look at her, something softened within him. He noticed the faint dark circles under her eyes, the diner uniform with a name tag that read Emily, and the little calluses on her hands that spoke of endless labor. He thought of his own mother, who had once worked double shifts to put food on the table after his father left. Without a word, Daniel relaxed his shoulders and let her rest. The train screeched as it sped down the track, but Daniel barely noticed. His mind kept drifting back to the woman leaning against him. Passengers across the aisle whispered and glanced, some with curiosity, some with faint smiles at the unlikely sight. A weary waitress asleep on the shoulder of a man in a designer suit. Daniel could have gently nudged her awake. He could have moved his seat, but instead he stayed perfectly still, adjusting his posture slightly so she wouldn't slip off when the train jolted. It was a small act, but it carried a quiet dignity. As he sat there, he caught a glimpse of the open tote bag on her lap. Inside was the shoebox project, the planets painted carefully in a child's uneven brushstrokes. A folded napkin sat on top, scribbled with what looked like homework notes in a child's handwriting. Daniel felt a tug at his chest. She wasn't just tired. She was someone's whole world. The train came to another stop, and the announcement echoed through the car. Emily stirred, suddenly realizing she had been leaning on a stranger. Her cheeks flushed crimson as she sat upright. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she stammered, brushing her hair back nervously. "I didn't mean to." Daniel interrupted gently with a faint smile. "You must be tired. Don't worry about it." Emily's embarrassment softened into relief, though she still looked flustered. She muttered a quick thank you and adjusted her bag, clutching it close as if to protect what little she had. Daniel gave a polite nod and didn't press further. But in that small, unspoken moment, something had passed between them. An understanding, fragile but real. The train ride continued, quieter now. Emily sat stiffly, unsure if she should say anything. Finally, perhaps out of a need to fill the silence, she offered a tired smile and said, "Long day, huh?" Daniel nodded. "You could say that." She chuckled softly, though her voice carried fatigue. "I've been on my feet since 6 this morning, double shift. My little girl has a project due tomorrow, so I couldn't miss helping her finish it. I promised her." Daniel glanced at the shoebox again. That must be hers. Emily's eyes lit up even through her exhaustion. "Yeah, she's in 2nd grade, smart kid, loves science, wants to be an astronaut one day." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pushed on. I want her to have everything I didn't, even if it means I go without sleep." There was no bitterness in her tone, only quiet determination. Daniel didn't reveal who he was. He didn't mention the skyscraper office he owned or the car waiting for him at the end of the line. Instead, he simply listened, humbled by her strength. When the train reached her stop, Emily stood up and adjusted her tote bag. "Thanks again," she said softly, "for letting me rest." Daniel only nodded. "Take care of yourself." And with that, she disappeared into the crowd, leaving him with an unfamiliar ache in his chest. 3 days later, Emily found herself standing nervously in the lobby of a sleek glass building. She had applied for an administrative job at a tech company, her last hope after a series of rejections. Rent was overdue, bills were piling up, and she couldn't afford to lose this chance. Clutching her resume, she stepped into the interview room, but as her eyes lifted, her heart skipped. There, sitting at the head of the polished conference table, was the man from the subway. Daniel Brooks. Emily froze, mortified. "Why, you?" she whispered. Daniel's lips curved into a small smile. "We meet again, Emily." Her cheeks burned. Of all the people to walk into, it had to be him. I didn't realize." He raised a hand gently. "Relax, you don't have to explain. I remember you." His gaze softened. "You're stronger than you think. Let's talk about how we can work together." Emily blinked in disbelief. This wasn't the cold rejection she had feared. Instead, it was as though fate had handed her a second chance. The interview was unlike any she had experienced. Instead of grilling her about her lack of college degree or gaps in her resume, Daniel asked about her values, her perseverance, her ability to adapt. For the first time, someone saw more than just her circumstances. He saw her potential. When it ended, Daniel shook her hand firmly. "Welcome aboard, Emily. We could use someone like you." Her knees nearly gave out. "You mean I got the job?" "Yes," he said simply. "You've already proven you don't give up. That's worth more than anything on paper." Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "Thank you." Weeks passed, and Emily adjusted to her new role at the company. It wasn't easy juggling work and motherhood, but for the first time, she felt like she was building something lasting. Daniel, though still her boss, often checked in, not with pity, but with genuine respect. One evening, as Emily tucked Lily into bed, the little girl looked up with wide eyes. "Mommy, you smile more now." Emily paused, realizing it was true. For so long, survival had left little room for joy. But now, a new chapter had begun. She kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, "That's because things are getting better, sweetheart." Later that night, as she reflected on her journey, Emily thought back to the subway ride, the night she had fallen asleep on a stranger's shoulder. She realized that sometimes the smallest moments could change everything. Her life wasn't suddenly perfect, the struggles weren't magically gone, but kindness had found her in the most unexpected place, opening a door she never thought possible. And as she drifted to sleep, she carried one truth in her heart. When life feels unbearable, remember, sometimes all it takes is one act of compassion to turn everything around. Emily's story reminds us that life can change in the most unexpected moment, sometimes on an ordinary subway ride, sometimes through a simple act of kindness. She was just a tired single mom, carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, yet her quiet strength spoke louder than words. For Daniel, a man who had everything money could buy, it wasn't her resume or status that stood out. It was her resilience, her love for her daughter, and her determination to keep going despite the odds. Their chance encounter became the turning point that opened a new chapter in Emily's life. But beyond one woman's story, this reminds us all of something bigger. Kindness matters, compassion matters. One small gesture, one choice to care, can change a life forever. So the next time you see someone struggling, remember, your shoulder, your patience, your willingness to understand might just be the light they need in their darkest hour. Because sometimes, when we least expect it, the smallest kindness leads to the greatest new beginnings.